You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 25 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. I wasn't able to record an episode last week, and this week I am doing a short one here to let you know what's been going on. I've been feeling quite overwhelmed with life, and I found an excellent reading from the Voices of Recovery, and I will read that in just a few minutes. But one of the things that I have been doing with the podcast is uploading all of the episodes to our YouTube channel. Bay Area SAA created a new YouTube channel earlier in the year. At our intergroup, we had a person that was in charge of the YouTube channel was our PICPC coordinator. PICPC stands for Public Information and Cooperation with the Professional Community. And the podcast falls under both of those categories. The professional community would be therapists and stuff, and public information is for just that. Anyway, our PICPC coordinator is leaving the area, and we divvied up responsibilities, and I took over the YouTube channel. And one of the things early on that I thought about using the YouTube channel for was to put the podcast there. And I thought it would be just, quick and easy. I've been doing YouTube videos on my own for quite a few years and know how to do it, but I forgot the fact that I am turning audio into video in order to upload to YouTube. And so that process is simple, but it just takes a lot of time. So a lot of my time over the past few weeks has been converting the audio episodes to video and then uploading those to our new YouTube channel. In wake of that, I have not been able to schedule an interview for the week or reach out to other people to grab to have quick conversations. I've got a couple things lined up for the future. Some of the interviewees that I'm looking at, we're just working out the scheduling. And like I mentioned in episode 24 with John M., we are going to be recording a first step presentation at one of our meetings. So we'll be recording the meeting and sharing that in its entirety. And working out the logistics for that has been something to consider. There have been a lot of things that we need to consider in order to do something like that. So in addition to that stuff, I have been overwhelmed at work. A lot of things going on there where I'm doing double and triple what I have been doing over the past year or so. And so when I get home, I am very tired and worn out and don't really have the energy to sit down and record. I just came off of a diversity and inclusion panel discussion today, and that has reinvigorated me into recording this episode here. So in the past, I have mentioned that the ISO has diversity and inclusion committees, and we have a local one here in the Bay Area. On past episodes, I had mentioned my intention to reach out to our local diversity and inclusion group to find people to share their own individual stories, so we're not just grabbing the same people and trying to get as much of a diverse population, different inner circle behaviors, different ethnicities, gender identities, all sorts of different things, ableism, things to consider. So we're not just hearing the same stories and getting these stories out to the public. I feel that it is incredibly important to share as much diversity as we can with this podcast. So I hope to be sharing some of those stories on the podcast here in the future. So like I had mentioned just a few minutes ago, I have been overwhelmed, and when looking at Voices of Recovery the other day, I ran across this reading. And this is from July 20th. When we sense what God would have us do, we also ask for the power to carry that out. Sex Addicts Anonymous, page 58. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's usually because I'm doing things on my own. Old habits of trying to measure up or prove that I'm of value through my actions may be surfacing. Or I may be so excited about giving 12-step service that I take on more than I can handle. Sometimes I allow schedule changes to get in the way of practices like prayer and meditation that keep me connected with my higher power. I've heard that recovery has a shelf life of about 24 hours, and it has proven true for me. If I get lax with daily conscious contact, the connection wavers, and I start feeling confused, fearful, unsteady, or irritable. There are times, though, when I have been consistently spending time with God that I still feel like life is too much for me to handle. When this happens, I'm probably doing my best to know God's will and carry it out, but forgetting to pray for power to do it. My experience has been that when I've thought to ask for strength, wisdom, and ability, I've been able to accomplish much more than I ever could have alone. God has helped me prioritize and manage my time. I've been able to remember things. Doors have opened. Supporting friends have appeared. Miracles great and small have happened. And I trust it will continue if I remember to ask. May I remember to look for the source of power today and ask for help. So yeah, reading that in my morning practice, it really dawned on me that me feeling overwhelmed is because I'm trying to do so much on my own. I relate to a lot of the stuff in this reading, the being so excited about giving 12th step service that I take on more than I can handle. Scheduling, recording, editing, uploading, all that stuff for the podcast is a lot of work. And sometimes I need help with that, and I forget to ask. So I do my daily prayers, ask for help and guidance from my higher power, ask for help from program friends, and it's helped out a lot. I've been given the realization that I don't need to feel the pressure of putting out a weekly podcast, that I can have grace in taking time for myself, that I need to rest, and things will be okay. Life will continue. So finding a connection with a higher power. Over the past few weeks, I have been discovering new music that really connects music, nature, history, and spirituality in a new way for me. So back on episode number 23 about using creativity, music, in the outer circle, I had mentioned a lot about reaction videos, and among them, I had mentioned the band The Who, which is the Mongolian throat singers, and Vardruna and Aurora, their song Helvegen. And that has led me down a path of Norse, Viking type of stuff, and a lot of that has ended up on reaction videos. The band Heilung in particular, Heilung in German means healing. And the band itself is members from Northern Europe, Denmark, Norway, and Germany, and harkens back to the Bronze Age, and they make a lot of their own instruments, their outfits that they wear on stage and in videos they've made. And it really has this connection with the earth, tribal sense. Like I mentioned, they carry in throat singing. A couple of the guys went and studied throat singing in the Far East and brought it into this music. And they sing in different languages. This connection that I've found with this music has been astounding. The song that I'm going to play a little clip from is called Norupo. And I believe the language for this is Icelandic. It has a drone throat singer that sounds a lot like a didgeridoo, Australian instrument. The layering of the voices is just incredible. So you have this really low pitch, and then an octave above, and then sometimes singing a fifth above that, and then even one octave higher. So you get this wide spectrum. And for me, it's meditation. It's where I do my morning practice at my break time. I feel that I've needed to have something that resets me. And a lot of their music, some of it is tribal chanting and call and response stuff with, again, drone notes, and just really sets in kind of a trance-like state. And I'll be talking about some of their other songs on other episodes. I have a guest that I want to talk to that she connects with this music as well. So we can probably go into details about that on that episode. But as far as this one goes, I wanted to play a clip from their song Norupo. And again, this is the band Heilung. And I'll leave the link to the video in the show notes. Oh man, I play this song over and over, multiple times a day. It is where I can recenter myself and connect with my higher power. The video version is a little bit longer. They've the first minute and a half is visual and some ambient noises of nature and other noises before the actual song kicks in. And there's also, they use silence in a way that I wish they had put on the actual album, a place between the quote unquote chorus and verse where everything just drops out and then swells back in. And it's an amazing way of using silence as power. But yeah, again, it's not on the studio track, just on the video version. So anyway, I am just really, really connecting with this type of music in a way that I haven't been able to connect with a higher power through music in a while. Definitely connect with Tool and other bands, but this is one that is really bringing out a lot of ancient tribal spirituality. Just looking at the songs that I selected to talk about in episode 23, it's no wonder that that Heilung is really connecting with me. I love it, and I hope that by sharing it today that some of you will get something out of it. Thinking of episode number 23, I did get an email feedback for that episode. So regarding episode 23, I love that episode so much. It's my fave so far. I have recently come to realize that cutting off my creativity was a contributing factor to my acting out. I was in a relationship that seemed to stifle my creativity. Plus, I was called weird all my life, and I was always afraid to just be myself or develop my creative gifts. I pushed it underground and wound up using it to fantasize about sex and romance far too much. I love the reading and the mixes. Very cool episode. Thanks so much for an awesome resource. And I thank you for providing that feedback. And I really hope that you are able to take that weirdness, that creativity, that inner freak, and turn that into something creative and powerful. Turn that into an outer circle, so it helps you in your recovery. Yeah, I too have been called very weird, and I have embraced my weirdness. I also wanted to read a review that we got on iTunes. I haven't looked back at iTunes ratings and reviews. By adding ratings and reviews, it helps the visibility of the podcast. It helps us carry the message to those that are still suffering. So if you can rate and review, that would be awesome. And this comes from Amy MJ, who I know, and I'm hoping that she will be a guest on the podcast soon. Thanks so much for this inspiring podcast. There is so much misinformation and confusion about what sex addiction and 12-step recovery really look like. So refreshing to hear some honest conversations about the work and the gifts of recovery. Thanks so much, Amy, for that review. And, like I said, I'm hoping to have you on the podcast soon. Amy is a COSA member and partner of one of my best friends in the program. I got another email that was more personal, so I won't be actually reading out the contents of the email, but someone that has been suffering from sex addiction for a long time and found the podcast on Spotify, and we're definitely there for you, and I will be reaching out. Like I mentioned in this episode, I've been quite overwhelmed, so I will be responding to your email. So yeah, keep them coming. I thank everyone that has provided feedback, and if you want to do so, you can always reach us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com, and for me personally, at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com if you want to be a guest on the podcast or part of a panel. Let me know. I've got a couple people who have been responding, and hopefully we can get those in the schedule. And before closing up this episode, I just wanted to talk more about being overwhelmed. When I originally recorded this episode, the microphone that I'm using sometimes gives little clicks and crackles and stuff, and you may have noticed that on past episodes. Usually if it's just a couple of seconds here or there, I let it go through the editing process. But this time it was 20 minutes worth of crackling, and it's a well-known issue with the microphone that I use. Other podcasters and YouTubers have had the same complaint and basically just need to shut it down, restart, and record it again. And for this episode, I've been re-recording what I had originally said. But as I've done that and listened back to the original recordings, there were a couple things that I did leave out and wanted to make sure that I got them. One of those was the fact that with my being overwhelmed when I've been getting home from work and being tired, I have been turning on the Olympics, and this is an outer circle thing for me. I usually am not a sports enthusiast, but when it comes to the Olympics, I just love watching the athleticism, sports that I am interested in, sports that I'm not interested in. I still find fascinating every 4 years, or in this case, 5 years. But I have been a skateboarder since I was about 10 years old, and to see Olympic skateboarding has been awesome. I've been really digging that. A lot of the other sports I've been enjoying as well. So my evenings, typically when I record a podcast, have been after I've been home from work after dinner, and I have been procrastinating, not getting on the microphone. Because I've been enjoying watching the Olympics. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. Sometimes I sit there on the couch for a few hours and want to hop on the mic and record, but I just can't seem to do it, feeling over that sense of being overwhelmed. Another area that I started to talk about on the first pass of the recording was talking about the sexaddictsrecoverypod.com website. Speaking about being overwhelmed, that's a venture my wife and I have been working on, and we've been since tackling other projects. We've got most of it done and ready, but there are a few things here and there that needs fixing before the official launch, and we were hoping to have it available for the convention that happened in May. That was kind of the impetus to get the podcast website up and running, but it's kind of taken a backseat to other projects that we have going on around the house. The current placeholder has all of the links to various podcasting platforms, and I've been directing people to that. One of the other things that I did mention on the previous recording was also that I have been getting questions about, is this podcast okay to share at SAA meetings? And although this is not an official ISO sanctioned podcast, it is SAA related. We are run by the San Francisco Bay Area Intergroup of SAA, so it definitely is for SAA meetings. Most of the meetings that I've been to, when doing announcements, it's been okay to share SAA-related stuff. We don't talk about other 12-step programs or other therapist-led things or recovery programs that are outside of SAA. But we do announce when other intergroups are running workshops or retreats or things like that. And so the podcast is something that's run by the San Francisco Bay Area Intergroup, and it is safe to announce at meetings if your meetings will announce things from other non-localized fellowships of SAA. So those were kind of the main points of things that I missed when trying to re-record this. As I'm editing through this portion, I heard the little pops and clicks right there, and I am deciding to leave those in. This episode about being overwhelmed has me overwhelmed. Looking back at the Voices of Recovery reading, if you are feeling overwhelmed, make sure to reach out to your higher power and ask for help with being overwhelmed and the power to carry that out. I am now going to hand it back over to the original second recording, this being the third recording, to close out the episode, switching back. And that's about all I have for this week. So I thank you again for tuning in, and look for some awesome episodes in the next coming weeks. Like I mentioned, in a few weeks, we'll be recording a first step and an entire meeting. So you'll be able to hear what a meeting sounds like. And I also have a couple really cool guests lined up, and I'm hoping that we can get the scheduling together. So thanks again for tuning in this week. And as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.